that, and charas and ganja was available and stuff like that. But then it's really about where you keep your focus, where you keep your energy. And I decided that I was going to do all the good things that I could, and I just kind of wanted to stay strong. Which is why I looked at all the constructive things I could do.
Welcome to Intensify Humanity podcast. We bring the stories of ordinary human beings with extraordinary journeys. They have been grinded through life in terms of extreme challenges, guilt, shame, and things people cannot even imagine. All because they made a choice or decision in life. They are literally not just inspiring, but intensifying humanity through unconventional ways to such an extent that other human beings are inspired and pushed to live to their highest potential in life. I, Somdutta Sarkar, your host today, will bring about the story of one such human being. I hope you find this episode inspirational. How does it feel to you when you get up in the morning and find yourself in the solitude of nature, in the lap of greenery and serenity with no worries, no tension, no pollution, no crowded population? A dream life, isn't it? Adding to the cherry on the cake, you are doing something you simply love to do. The Himalayan writing retreat is the dream that this person is living right now. But that is not the end of the story. It was not always like this. Imagine one day, just like you and me, this human being waking up and going for work, and all plans are set with his family for the Christmas Eve in the year 2012. When suddenly he finds himself landing in jail. That fateful weekend transported him from a normal world to a completely different dark world which no person on earth wishes to visit in his entire lifetime. The renowned author of the book, The Bad Boys of Bokaro Jail, the former CEO of HCL Learning Limited, and an excellent living example of a never give up attitude, Chetan Mahajan is redefining and intensifying humanity by his stories, experiences, wit, and contributions to the world. A warm welcome to you on Intensify Humanity podcast. So let me ask you the first question, Chetan, that how do you start your day, especially when you are currently in the lap of Himalayas right now?
So I'm a very early morning person, so I'm usually up around 5, and my day starts with writing. Because that's a time when I have undisturbed, completely focused time where I can be creative. So usually from 5 to about 7:30, I do my writing, and then my day starts actually. In fact, the sun rises right in front of my study. We've designed the house such that I can see the dawn when I'm at work because it's my favorite time of day. Yeah, it is a great time to be up and running.
So Himalayan writing retreat, right? So what is it all about and how did it originate?
So the Himalayan writing retreat is really the outcome of an idea that we had. It was a very untested idea. There wasn't any such entity, at least in India, at the time in 2016 when we started. And the idea was a simple one that if there is a place where people can come either to learn, so a lot of people want to write, but they don't know how to write, or if they want to come just to, if you're a writer, you already know what you want to write, but you need a place which is free of distraction and which has a lot of inspiration and silence. Then we wanted to create such a place so that we could enjoy it and we could also help other people enjoy it. And it started off with a small course which we designed. I'm a published author, as you know,
Yes.
and it was a 3-day course, and we put it out there, and a fair number of people turned up, and then we built it slowly from there. So now it's fairly well established, and we get people who are interested in learning how to write. We get career authors who want to come here and be left alone basically. And we also do courses on things like blogging and storytelling. Yeah, but everything related to writing, storytelling, basically we work in that domain.
Wow, I'm sure for all the writers and bloggers out there, including me, it's a heaven for us. Let me ask you the next question, Chetan. Your first book, that is The Bad Boys of Bokaro Jail, right? It was written when you were at a place where no one even wants to even visit. So could you just tell us the story behind it?
Sure. For the first 20 years of my career, I used to be a regular corporate guy. I wasn't a writer. I wasn't into writing. And the corporate world took me, had me travel, and I had various responsibilities, and I'd grown. And I'd recently joined this company called Evron, and Evron had a test prep business, which I was supposed to be responsible for, amongst other parts of the business. And I mean, it was a long story, but basically there was one particular center in Bokaro city, which was doing extremely well, and which was not delivering to our the promises we have made to the parents. And because of that, some of the parents became very, very agitated, up in arms, and they filed a police complaint. And I happened to be there on the ground at that particular time. And since I was the most senior person around, the cops landed up arresting me and putting me in jail. And I tried to explain to them, saying, "Look, I've just joined the company, and it's very, very recent and new. Whatever is happening in October, and I was arrested in December." And I was explaining to them that I'm not a shareholder, I'm not on the board, none of those things. But they said, I have to arrest somebody because it's in the front page of the newspaper, and you're the most senior guy around. So they arrested me and put me in jail. And when I landed up in jail, of course, that was never part of the plan, of any plan. And I'd never expected to find myself there. But then my quest was, how can I make something worthwhile even out of this experience? How can I turn this into a positive? And your options in a prison are very limited, because you can write, you can read, and you can run and walk. So those are pretty much the things you can't do. You can't do too much else. And so I decided that that's what I would do. And I started reading, I started running, or rather continued to run. But I also started writing, which was a new thing for me. But I sat down and I got a couple of registers, because in jail everything is offline. And I started writing a very diligent diary every single day in detail about everything that I had experienced and what all went on. And that is what then led to I was released after a month. And when I came out, I had this basically my first draft, which was ready. And then it took me a while to get back on my feet. And then I was working on it, and I became a student of writing. And finally, that book came out a year after my release in 2012, under the title of Bad Boys of Bokaro Jail. And it was published by Penguin, which made it sweeter for me than otherwise.
In those days, like
Mhm.
literally it's like a thunder on your head. So what is that one thing that kept you going in there?
I mean, the one thing that was the most critical, most central to me was I knew I had done nothing wrong. And when you know that you've not done anything wrong, then that gives you strength. And then, of course, the other thing which was a huge factor for me was that my friends and families completely rallied around me, and they were with me, the entire time. Never once had any doubt about my having done anything wrong. And so that those two things really helped me carry through and make sure that I came out intact.
World inside the jail or that world and the outside world are completely different. That is fine. But there are different sections out there inside the jail,
Yeah,
like the supplies and everything. There are drugs and everything going on that everybody knows. It's an open secret.
yeah.
So you were depressed, which is very normal, but you did
Hmm.
not give in to that depressed state or the depressed inmates over there. Infinite times you might have thought that, okay, just let go or something like that. So what stopped you from going to the negative side of it?
Well, so I think it's really about who you are. I mean, there were people in there, and when you met with them, they told you very matter of factly, saying, Sir, hum to drug addict ban gaye." So people saying stuff like that, and charas and ganja was available and stuff like that. But then it's really about where you keep your focus, where you keep your energy. And I decided that I was going to do all the good things that I could, and I just kind of wanted to stay strong. Which is why I looked at all the constructive things I could do. I was looking at the brighter side, and I had no idea, of course, when I was doing all this writing, that it would become a book. I had no idea that it would, Penguin would sign me on or anything like that. But it was just, what can you do today? What can I do in this moment, in this hour, which is positive and which is constructive and which will keep me strong. And so that was really the things I talked about: the running, writing, and the reading. And so I focused on that. And there was that temptation which was offered. I was offered that I could stay in that ward where these kind of things were freely available. There was an iPad, there was a television set, and everything else. But I consciously chose to not move to that word, because if I had, then I would have succumbed, or I might have been much more tempted.
Chetan, hats off to your willpower, your courage, your determination. Really, honestly, from the bottom of my heart. It was like a new life when you finally came out of that atmosphere. And being in corporate for so long, I'm sure you must have faced challenges in the professional front too. But in your personal life, as you mentioned, that your family was there to wholeheartedly support you. But
Mhm.
in personal front, I'm sure you might have faced lots of challenges when you finally went to your home in that society. What is the biggest challenge that you faced in personal front?
So, actually, I was quite lucky in the sense that after I came out, the case was very quickly absolved, and my name was cleared.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was looking for a job, because I had worked with the Tatas for a long time and I had a decent reputation,
Okay.
HCL very kindly said that they would hire me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I decided to join them. But they did say that it can't be an under trials. But since my name had been cleared, I joined them. I mean, I was released in Jan, I joined them in April.
Right.
So that was not so much professionally. I was kind of back on my feet fairly quickly. The thing that was difficult was really the whole, I mean, people somehow just thought that something was off.
Mm-hmm.
Would meet old friends, you would meet people who knew you, and there was something in their eyes which would say that they were looking at you a little differently.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, who goes to jail for a month for not having done anything? That's a kind of like an underlying assumption that I think people had.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, I think so that was one aspect which was a difficulty. The other was immediately after I came out of jail. Also, I was for about a month and a half. I was having a rough time. I used to get nightmares, and yeah, I have those classic dreams that there's a train standing in front of you and you're trying to get on it, but the train's moving and you're not able to
Mm-hmm.
catch it. Things like that. So it took me a little time to kind of just get my act together and get myself together before I rejoined the workforce. And it was quite so that was the kind of challenge. And the fact that I wrote the book actually was a very interesting flip of that whole situation, because then it's like me telling the world that, look, I went to jail and I've written a book about it and I've shared everything I had to share. So it's really not my problem anymore. If you still have an issue with it, it's really your problem. So that was really a way to deal with it, amongst other things.
The way you have come out is completely different, and people should see it in a very positive way. You are a writer, of course, a published author, an entrepreneur, and a teacher. Now,
Right.
with all these of extremes of experiences in life, what is the one beautiful realization you had or the lesson you learned which you did not had previously when you were in the corporate life?
Um, I think it's dawned on me a little more recently, but it's really thinking about motivation. And I think even in corporates, there's a lot of talk about motivation and where does your desire to do something come from? All humans, we inherently have this desire to strive.
Mm.
We have to strive. I'm striving to build the Himalayan writing retreat. You're striving to build this podcast. So
Mhm.
we all have to strive. And the question is, where does your motivation, where does your inner strength and the drive come from? And I think when you move outside is when you realize that a lot of the people are looking outside for that drive. They're looking for incentives, they're looking for financial incentives, they're looking for social approval, to be able to follow to find the motivation to keep going and to do what they do. But I have come to realize that real joy comes when your drive, when your inner motivation is really intrinsic. It's coming from inside you, where you want to build something which matters to you, which you take pride in, which means something deep to you. And
Mhm.
I realized that at least I was at a point in my career where my job wasn't doing that for me anymore. I had been in jobs earlier which I had thoroughly enjoyed and which had really helped me grow as a person. But now I was flatlining, and I was making too many compromises in my life, in the city, and not getting as much as I wanted out of it. So that really was the one big thing, and I think that's also what kind of drove us to look for a completely alternative way of life.
And you also mentioned that your son was not well before moving, right? So
Yeah,
what happened actually?
so we were living in Gurgaon, and while we were checking a lot of the boxes, we couldn't do anything about air quality. I mean, you can have a big house and a nice car, but the air that you breathe is something that is a given. And he had a really bad wheezing problem. He's not asthmatic, he doesn't have any physical constraints, but he had this really bad wheezing problem because of which, he wouldn't even be able to sleep at night. It was really bad, and we went to various doctors, and they all said that if you're going to live in Gurgaon, then you just have to put him on medication because there's nothing you can do about it. And that was really kind of the last straw. I mean, there was enough already that we felt was wrong with the city, but when this happened, then it was like you really don't want to live in this city anymore because that's too big a compromise for anyone to make. And so that's when we decided to up the anchor and walk.
Okay, so that was another trigger point for you.
Yeah, that was really the big thing,
Mm-hmm.
which we said that, what is the reason to stay in the city? It's really about your career or your kids' education. And if you can rebuild your career, if you can find your kids good education outside of the city, then the negatives of the city were starting to far outweigh the positives of the city. And so we left.
All incidences are not bad. Good things come
Uh,
out of it.
that's true. I mean, it has to work, but you have to be able to keep your options open. You can't say that this is it and my God, what am I going to do? I don't have alternatives. Sometimes, it's life is not a multiple choice question. Sometimes you have to create your own choices because they may not be there on that piece of paper which is sitting in front of you. And that's the difference between taking an exam in real life.
What next, along with the Himalayan writing retreat?
Uh, so I'm actually, already have my hands full because the Himalayan Writing Retreat really is like a startup, and we have a lot of through traffic, people coming in, events. Right now, for example, is a very busy time because these couple of months we are very, very heavy on our events. During the winter, it's very light. During the monsoons, it's very light. But in addition to running the Himalayan Writing Retreat and bringing in awesome teachers who can teach various things like storytelling and blogging, and also faculty and writers from the US who come and visit us, the one big thing I have to do is write books. I mean, that's what my passion is, and that's what I really enjoy. And I have two books that I'm working on right now. One is a novel called Tara and Vishnu, and the other is a non-fiction book called The Rat Who Wouldn't Race. And I'm hoping to have those two out in the next few months. So hopefully in a year or so, both of them should be out. So that's what my goal is at this point in time. So working on those two books, and then in addition, of course, I write this blog called Uncity. So the whole idea of Uncity is, people who are deciding to move away from the city and live an alternative life. So the Uncity thought is so what is that real experience? What is the move like for the family? How do you make ends meet? How do things change in terms of people and neighbors and community, and your expectation of privacy and building walls and barriers? So all of those things are discussed in Uncity blog, and it's actually won an award for humor also from Indie Blogger. So that's another thing, which is again writing, which I love to do and which I enjoy. And in addition to all this, of course, I ride motorcycles, and I go for long walks. Both Vandita and I, we go for long walks, and we keep designing and coming up with new programs at the Himalayan Writing Retreat. So my wife Vandita is a clinical psychologist, and she's designed this program called Writing for Self,
Wow.
which is really about introspection and reflection, where people are searching for meaning or people are wanting to look within, and they come here and they stay with us for 3 4 days and they go through the program. So that's a big part of the fun of it, is just coming up with new things, trying out new stuff, and a lot of it actually works, so that makes it even nicer.
This is beautiful, and especially the concept of uncity. What specific message you want to give to our listeners?
So I would really want people to, when you're in a dark place, don't feel helpless. When you feel like you have no options, don't believe that. You can be in a dark place, and you will still have something positive that you can make out of it. You might feel like your options are limited, but you can actually create options. So there is a lot that you can do. There is a lot that can be done, which will really, which could completely change your life and give you a different direction that you had never even imagined. It requires equal measure of bravery and foolishness, because if you try and plan everything out and say that, everything has to be in perfect shape before I make this move, that's never going to happen. uh, there is always a leap of faith that you have to make, and it's about having enough trust. And yeah, I mean, if you have a partner who goes along with you on this journey, which I think I have been very, very fortunate with, then sometimes you just have to kind of, it's a saying that sometimes you have to jump, take the leap, and build your wings on the way down. So that's really sometimes the path that might be the right one for you if you're done with every other thing that was on the horizon.
I think that's a very powerful message, and everybody needs that. Especially the reason that I'm doing the podcast of this theme is
Hmm.
really aligned to that.
Great.
And yeah, really thank you for sharing that message. Now, we'll have the quick question round. What is your favorite book?
My favorite book is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance by Robert M. Persig. It's really a book on philosophy. It's not on motorcycle maintenance, but I love that book because I think it's the antidote to a lot of the stuff that Ayn Rand and people like that write.
So, what is the most important self development ritual you do every day?
I think just staying fit, going for long walks, and having a conversation with my wife about everything that's happening. That's a very important part of life. The other is I'm always learning. Even if it's like trying to build Himalayan writing retreat, I have to learn how to be a better writer. I have to learn how to be a better teacher. I have to learn to be a better internet marketer, and all of those things. So I'm constantly learning, and that's a big part of just continuing to grow.
Great. So, student of life.
Yes.
So, who is your role model?
I don't have one. I don't
Okay.
know if I have a role model. I I've just tried to be the best person I can be. That's my role model, I guess.
So, till now, what is the best memory from the Himalayan writing retreat?
From these 4 years. Well, there have been lots of very, very nice memories. So I haven't, I don't have one particular one that comes to mind. But I think the best memory was, we've been announcing programs for a long time, and we were putting it out there, and we were, hoping people would come. And we always have an upper limit of 10 people because we think more than that is too much of a compromise. But for the first year or so, that was just on paper because we never got 10 applicants. We would only get three or four or five, but we would still very loudly say, no, no, we don't take more than 10 people. And then after that, about last year or so, we actually started getting enough applicants that we had to start turning people away. And I think that was a really good feeling because that was also reaffirmation that yes, we are doing something right. Things are starting to work properly, and yeah, so I think that was definitely one of probably the most satisfying things was starting to see that people are coming. And the other thing which matters a lot to me is both on Google and Facebook we have a 5 on 5 rating. It's not like 4.9, it's 5 on 5. Every single review is a 5-star review, and
Wow.
that gives us a lot of satisfaction because this is not, and we didn't game it, we didn't hire people or anything. This is this is real people over the last 3 years who've come and been with us and have gone back saying it was fantastic. So that's again very, very satisfying.
So, the last question: what would you be if not an entrepreneur or a writer?
I would be a professional motorcycle something. I don't know what. If somebody would pay me to ride a motorcycle across mountains, I would probably be doing that job. That job doesn't exist, but I do travel a lot and I do ride my bike a lot. But that's my other big passion, and I have to be very careful because obviously I have a family and kids. But at the same time, I don't let it go. I own a motorcycle. Technically, in fact, I own two, and I still make it a point that I'm riding and enjoying that part of life as well.
Wow. So, you're a big, passionate rider. It was lovely talking to you because it's like a fresh view about everything in life. your experiences, like your outlook, your contributions, the way you are like contributing to the world, you are intensifying each and everything that you are doing, be it a complete new concept like the Himalayan writing retreat, be it that uncity concept. It's beautiful.
Right.
And yes, you are intensifying humanity to a huge extent. I'm sure people who are listening right now will definitely love to visit that place and definitely love to listen more of you.
Sure. Thanks so
And
much. Yeah.
thank you so much for coming to my show.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
I really appreciate your inviting me, and I've enjoyed it a lot. And if this can reach even one person to whom it'll offer inspiration, I'll be very happy.
Definitely, definitely. It'll reach lots of people. Yeah.
Sounds great.
Thank you everyone for tuning into my show. That was Chetan Mahajan, the person, after getting struck down by unpredictable circumstances in life, never gave up, never got drowned in negativity, but in turn intensifying humanity to the best possible extent. I hope